Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone, ready to talk the penultimate episode of WandaVision with my two wonderful friends, fellow co-hosts, and just all around delightful people, Jesse Jackson and DJ Nick. How you doing, guys?
Good, very good.
Yes, indeed. You're doing awesome. Super looking forward to discussing this episode today.
All right. Well, yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Surprise, it's WandaVision. We got a lot to talk about. So here at episode 207, we are going to be discussing Previously On, which I kind of gather is a little nod to a certain TV show that I was fond of in the 2000s called Lost. Mm-hmm. And 2000s, 2010s. Because that show became notable because they would do every episode after the first one, they would go, Previously on Lost, and start recapping things. And that's what essentially this episode is. It's sort of a recap episode, but more importantly, it's a let's fill in the missing details of questions, or at least try to answer some questions that we've had since this series began.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this was the 8th episode of season 1. Hopefully it's a season 1. May not be, who knows, but we'll enjoy it while it lasts, regardless, just like we did Watchmen, that aired on February 26th, 2021, so just a couple of days ago from when we're recording, here at the very end of February. So hard to believe that we've already knocked out 2 months out of the year already. Crazy, right? Written by Laura Donney, who's new to the show, hasn't written for the series before, and once again directed by Matt Shakman. No surprise there. So before we get into a couple of new guest cast members in this one and some trivia, I want to get everybody's thoughts because this is another big episode. This is essentially, it's almost kind of like an exposition episode where we have characters explaining things getting explained to us, the audience. So I want to get everybody's take. So Jesse, I'll start with you first. What was your reaction?
So if I remember correct, last week you rated the episode a little lighter than
an 8.5.
Nick and I.
Yeah.
Not disliking it, but you felt like it was kind of setting things up.
Yeah.
And that is how I felt on this episode a lot. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but it was kind of like, okay, let's get everyone on the same page before we burst through the finish line. So I enjoyed it, and I do think it was an important episode to have. I think I wanted a little more meat than what they gave us.
Okay. Well, you might find when we get to our ratings that I am very similar to last week's episode in that regard.
Okay.
All right. Without spoiling it, although if you're reasonably bright, you could probably figure out my rating.
Yes, it did. Yes.
Okay. Nick, how about you? What was your reaction to this?
Well, first off, I have to say I have one word for this episode, and that is atypical.
Okay.
As rather than kind of build up momentum to our finale, which you would expect, we were given, I think, an incredibly insightful and introspective episode, as I think it very much leans into the exploration of grief by attempting also to answer why these events are happening in the first place. I mean, I had talked previously about how Disney is redefining and adding almost a sophistication to the superhero TV medium. And I think it has very often been the case that the small screen has surpassed the big screen when it comes to exploring things like the emotional and psychological layers of a character for an entire episode, because you don't really get this as much in the movies. And here I think we also get the opportunity to get closer to Wanda through this very cathartic and therapeutic dive. And this is all, I think, to the good, as Wanda deserves to be heard and understood. And I think it was very much a reminder of the power of great television.
Yeah. You both bring up some really great points, and I'm kind of with you on pretty much all those. My reaction to this was, it's probably going to depend on what we get next episode in the season/series finale, because this episode, like Jesse said, is essentially setup. It's explanations. It's stuff that, we're answering some questions, probably, that we've had all along before we get into whatever finale we get. So my question is, are we going to get this really big, extra long episode, final episode? This one was 46 minutes, so hooray for actually doing an episode of normal length. Kudos, Disney Plus. But I got to wonder,
Charles,
yeah?
No, I just have to interrupt you, but it felt like 12 of that was credits.
Okay.
They have some long credits on this show.
But they were probably felt a little bit longer because of that mid-credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, yes.
Right. So, and we'll talk about that. Don't worry, guys. We're going to cover that. So stay tuned. But yeah, my reaction is this would be the kind of episode of, like, if you're doing it during a regular season, that you would lay these cards out on the table, and then you would have, like, maybe either an extra length final episode of the season or like a two-parter. Because you want to explain some things and kind of, get everything situated the way you want before you knock it down, in the big chaos of the finale. So my question is, are we going to get an extra length finale, or is this something that's going to be wrapped up in, say, Doctor Strange and the multiverse of madness? Or maybe are we going to get a season 2 out of this? Because it seems like they're setting up like this big thing with, and we'll talk about this as we discuss the episode, with Wanda becoming the Scarlet Witch at long last, that we've wanted to see, and fully embracing her power. And the question is, well, what happens after that? What does she do with it? Does she throw down with Agatha while the Vision that's in the dome in Westview battles this white Vision that gets revealed in the mid credits? Or is this a simple case of, like, well, she's going to become, this big, super powerful, mega powerful, boss level Scarlet Witch, and then we're just kind of going to leave things hanging until Doctor Strange? What do you think?
Well, I mean, Charles, that was exactly why I defined this episode as being atypical. Because in the sense that an episode like this, we usually expect, say, halfway through the season, not, should we say, prior to the finale.
Right.
And that's why I say kudos to Disney for being so bold and brave and trying something new, as in putting this here and not previously. And funnily enough, if you look at the reaction from the people, everybody loved this episode.
Right.
I saw so many people that said, I cried buckets. This was the most emotional thing Disney has ever done. They were so, so happy with it. Because one might expect is, when are they going to get to the fireworks factory? Whereas it's actually, everybody was so, so happy that we had this kind of, let's take the moment to really look at emotion.
Yeah, this is a reflection episode.
Yeah.
And, in a great, essentially setting up things that we've talked about Wanda's grief and how it's really affected her, all these traumatic events, and why it was essentially the Vision's death was this big tipping point. It was the straw that literally broke the camel's back in this case, where Wanda finally snapped, and this was the result.
Yeah, and before I actually pass this over to Jesse, my theory is, reportedly the finale will be the longest episode that we will be getting. At least that's what some of the news headlines and stuff have said. So I don't think every single thing will be wrapped up, and it will probably bleed into next year's Doctor Strange movie.
Right.
But I think that what we will get is some sort of a resolution, but kind of like when the screen goes dark and you get the Scarlet Witch will return in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That's what I think is going to happen. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with you, Nick.
Well, first off, Bold and Brave.
K9. Hi, K9.
Bold and Brave is DC.
Brave and the Bold, yes.
Yes, exactly. So that's the first thing I thought, like, wait a minute, we're not talking DC. Yeah, I think all of those are good points. And, Charles, I've got to echo exactly what you say.
That is wise.
Are we going to get a payoff? because we've got all this set up.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to our specific categories, we're going to talk about themes. I have a little bit more to share, but I want to kind of save it for now. But
that's fine. Yeah. We got to have something to talk about during these topics, right? So
exactly.
So that's okay. All right. So guest cast, same as always. Although we don't get to see Darcy or Monica or much of Billy and Tommy in this episode, but we do get obviously a lot of Wanda, a lot of Vision, and definitely a lot of Agatha, and quite a bit of Tyler Hayward in this one, who seems to be like this, by all appearances, at least some sort of a big bad in this. Now, the question obviously is, how much of a big bad? Is he just like, corrupt government type, rogue sword guy with an evil agenda, or is he something more than that? So maybe we'll get some answers to that next episode.
So I have a question for you guys, because you pay attention to everything so well. Deborah Jo Rupp seems to have a pretty high listed when they list the characters. I mean, when they list the credits. So I don't know if that's just because
she's a veteran actress.
Her agent negotiated. Yeah, like her agent negotiated very strong. Like, okay, I don't care how much screen time she has to be fifth in the credits or not. Because I noticed that last time they had her name listed pretty colorful. Like, we just had a little clip of her, and this time the same thing. We had her like at a cafe or something, and I was like, wow, I want her agent because she gets something,
gets a lot of hype for just what is essentially a cameo. A really 5-second cameo.
Yeah. Unless she plays a bigger role in the finale, but it could probably be, as Charles was saying, that she gets higher billing because that she's been in the game longer.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Maybe. That's the only thing I could think of, honestly.
Yeah.
We did get the introduction of Ilana, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Kohanchi as Irina Maximoff, and an actor named Danny Yar as Oleg Maximoff, Wanda's parents. And interestingly, these are not the same actors that we were speculating about being the, Wanda's parents in the commercials that we've been seeing all season. Mm-hmm. So pretty much everybody can just write that theory out of the water, presumably. So not sure who those people were that featured in the commercials, or just they figured, well, we're just going to have the same actors in every commercial. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that essentially negates one of the theories. So I thought I'd mention that very quickly. Trivia. Let's talk about Wanda's favorite episode of The Dick Van Dyke Show, because it gets a lot of attention when what we're told is Season 2, Episode 21 of The Dick Van Dyke Show. I have not seen this episode. I would watch the occasional Dick Van Dyke Show, but I was never a big fan. But apparently what this episode is it's titled, It May Look Like a Walnut. Mm-hmm. And it's written by Carl Reiner. And if you don't know who Carl Reiner is, shame on you.
Yes.
Because he's a comedy legend, father of Rob Reiner. Hopefully you've heard of him at least. And just a brilliant guy that worked with Mel Brooks and a lot of other great comedians over the years. And just like I said,
recently passed, didn't he, at the end of last year?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, Jesse. I mean, I don't know if it was at the end of last year, but fairly recently at least.
Yeah.
But in this episode, and the reason I'm bringing this up, Rob Petrie, Dick Van Dyke's character, enjoys a scary sci-fi movie on TV while Laura, his wife, played by Mary Tyler Moore, hides under the bed covers trying not to listen to it. Like, she just wants to get some sleep, I guess. And when the show ends, Rob further tortures Laura by telling the tale of Kolak, a visitor from the planet Twilo who apparently resembles Danny Thomas and deploys walnuts to steal Earthlings' thumbs and imaginations. So I'd love to know what the writers were, or what Carl was drinking while he wrote this episode.
Yes, or smoking at that point.
Smoking. Yeah, I don't want to judge. I don't want to presume, but something was going on there. So Rob wakes up in the morning to a living room covered with walnuts, and Laura preparing scrambled walnuts for Rob's breakfast. And everyone in the office acts like if Kolak really existed. So the big thing is here, is Rob actually dreaming this, or is just Laura getting some form of payback for torturing him? So essentially it's Rob questioning his reality, living in this kind of dream state, or so he thinks. And just a very interesting metaphor for what's going on here.
Yeah, I thought it was. I do not remember watching the episode either, though I did love the Dick Van Dyke Show and would watch it
Yeah.
fairly often. And when it was being
Apparently, this is a
syndicated.
really
I mean,
high-rated episode too, as far as
yeah, it is,
TV
and
guide list and all that.
yeah, and it's one of those because normally, the Dick Van Dyke Show was very grounded in sitcom reality, right? Of course, nothing is exactly, truly based in reality because it's, in that world.
Right.
And so I do think the payoff was this is an episode where it's all been imagined. And so it's kind of interesting that Wanda, that would be her favorite episode of not only a scary science fiction movie, but it's all pretend.
Yes.
And which is, I think, a very strong metaphor.
That basically, yeah, it's like the nugget of the idea that planted in her brain about when she finally does have her mental snap, her mental breakdown, that that's where her brain went to, this childhood memory.
Yes.
And why it's so key because, as we find out during this episode, we'll talk about this, that, it's very important to the moment where her parents died.
Yes.
Or at least the people we presume are her parents.
Yes.
Right.
We'll talk more about that.
And then, and I believe I saw in the trivia that also a little bit of timey-wimey because Malcolm in the Middle would not have been at this time period been available for bootleg because it hasn't been made yet. But that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of, and there was some talk about, well, this resets the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline and all this, and it was like, just, they're playing fast and loose with the timeline. Don't overanalyze it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was just because they wanted to have the sitcom fun, so they wanted to explain that. Yeah.
Yeah. So something else I thought was interesting was in Marvel Comics, Agatha Harkness. So in the comics, she settles in this English colony of Salem, Massachusetts, and forms her own coven of witches, hoping to freely practice magic in, the New World at the time. So this is essentially 1692 AD, which was a year before it is on the TV show when we opened this episode, which is 1693, obviously. So Agatha and her group apparently were persecuted by the Puritans. No surprise there if you're familiar at all with the Salem witch trials. And that's what essentially became known as the Salem witch trials. So Agatha, interestingly enough, approved of the witch trials because she believed they were necessary for the magical people to essentially grow stronger. So essentially she was a sort of a magical Darwinist, survival of the fittest. So consequently, she even sent some of her coven out to call out the weak. Which is very interesting, that she was essentially trying to, for lack of a better term, breed a stronger, a magical community by getting rid of the weak chaff, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
A little bit different, though, I think, than the Agatha that's presented here. And again, we've talked about this, that the Agatha in the comics seems to be, throughout Marvel's history, has been a very good character, an ally to a lot of the various supernatural heroes, including the Scarlet Witch. Acting as a mentor to the Scarlet Witch. So here it's kind of interesting that, this version, this Marvel Cinematic Universe version, is essentially, at least by appearances, perhaps a villain.
Yeah, I think so.
So if you're wondering about the White Vision that shows up at the very end, or during that mid-credit scene, I want to give a little background on this. The White Vision first appeared in Avengers West Coast number 45. And for those who can't see, in podcast land, I am holding up that very cover from my trade paperback. And this was a part 4 of the Vision Quest storyline. It was done by, written and drawn by John Byrne, if you're wondering, back in the day. And in that storyline, after rogue agents of various governments, almost like a kind of a cosmopolitan cabal, if you will, they were manipulated by the time traveler Immortus. They abducted the Vision and dismantled him. Pretty much kind of like as we see here in this episode. So where you see like all his parts kind of spread out on various tables. So that was taken directly from that issue and that storyline. And the Avengers in the comics recover the parts, and Dr. Hank Pym, yes, that Hank Pym that's, in Ant-Man and the Wasp and the Ant-Man movie, rebuilt the Vision, but with this time ended up having a chalk white complexion. And fellow Avenger Wonder Man, Simon Williams, who originally was used as his brain patterns were used to create the Vision's personality by Ultron. Well, this time apparently he refused to allow his brain patterns to be used again to provide another matrix for the Vision's emotions, explaining that the original process, which was performed by Ultron without his consent because, hey, he was dead at the time, had quote-unquote ripped out his soul. And this, along with damage to the Vision's synthetic skin while he was dismantled, resulted in the Synthezoid's resurrection as a colorless and emotionless artificial human, until he later adopted new brain patterns from a deceased scientist named Alex Lipton. So presumably we are going to get in the next episode, based on this little teaser, that we're going to get a emotionless white Vision that perhaps may be used as a way to resurrect the Vision. We'll see. What is everybody's theories on that? I know we'll talk about this topic later, but any quick theories about whether you think the Vision will be brought back using the white Vision?
Charles, I kind of destroyed Christine's hopes and dreams, Christine Peruski, when we talked about this.
Christine.
Because hello, okay, Christine.
Thank you for the Jammy Dodgers once again, Christine. She hooked me up with some Jammy Dodgers. I have to thank her.
So I've been told. And,
yes.
But here's the thing. I kind of destroyed her hopes and dreams because I have a very bleak theory about this.
Okay. What's your bleak theory?
My thought is if we are going through the stages of grief.
Right.
Could this possibly...
Where's acceptance, right?
Could this possibly be a final showdown between Wanda and Vision? She destroys him and accepts that he's gone.
It's a good question.
And moves on without Vision.
Good question.
Because we have seen other characters make sacrifices and technically not returning, so it wouldn't be the first time this happens. And plus, I don't know for how long Paul Bettany is signed on with Disney. There's also that to consider.
Yes.
And since he probably is, very much an actor in demand, I don't know how long his contract is with Disney at this point. Other than that, my thought is, look, if we're looking at the very, very bleak theory, I think it could go two ways. Either he comes back and Wanda reaches acceptance by literally destroying this faux Vision, and thus accepting that he is gone and helps her move on from her grief. Or, like you said, it might bring back Vision into the grander scheme of things in the MCU. But I am, this is the optimist in me, but saying this, but I have a feeling if they are following the stages of grief, it's going to be, you have to accept the guy's gone, he ain't coming back.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I think you laid out both extremes.
Possibilities.
Yeah, the possibilities really well. I like Charles's version better, but I'm not surprised, since I'm all rainbows and sunshine and want happiness. I want a happy ending. Though I do think there is a lot to be said for this stages of grief and acceptance being that, right, where she ends up kind of coming to acceptance and takes this false Vision, and cast it aside. So we'll see. I think that will make a very strong ending either way. I think I will be, if they don't give us that ending and they leave it to continued in Doctor Strange or continues, I will be disappointed.
Yeah. It's I guess it's all going to depend on what we get next week, really.
Exactly. Yes.
Because it could go, just either way, really. Either we're going to get a satisfying resolution or we're going to get left hanging. Or perhaps, maybe this will be a very dark ending. We don't know. So maybe three possibilities here.
Yeah.
I think that it would be very brave on Disney's part if they did go the dark route. And it might actually, and a lot of people who maybe are suffering from depression and stuff in these times might have gone through these stages. Right. Would be able to relate to that kind of situation of having maybe lost a loved one and having grieved about it. And, sadly, these people that we have lost, as much as we'd love them to come back, they won't be coming back. And I think it might be a very strong message to the people as well, because those who I think connected with Wanda in her dealing with her grief, I think it would really reinforce the relatability of the character if that happened. I get Disney has mostly been known for happy endings,
right?
But I think it would be very brave and very strong, and that's to make the character even more relatable if they went down the route of, she's going to have to get over the fact that Vision is dead.
Well, and I do think just because Disney is the parent company, I mean, we got Tony Stark's death.
Exactly.
We did get
It's not a guarantee, is it?
Right, Black Widow, even though I think a little that was softened because we knew we had a prequel movie coming, so we get more time with that actress. And I could often see Robert Downey Jr. going, okay, I've been a good soldier, I'm ready to move on. Yeah, but I do think
of course, now he's saying never say never, so who knows?
Yes, exactly. Well, and it is comic book world, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And if nothing else, well, hey, if you need something hopeful and uplifting, there's always Superman and Lois.
Yes.
Right?
Very much so.
All right.
Absolutely.
And I can't endorse that enough. So, all right. So we have 4 topics, unless Nick, you had any other trivia you wanted to talk about that I missed?
No, because you already touched up on the whole West Coast Avengers thing, Charles, and I love that they're pulling on a comic that for some people was so kind of people kind of took pot shots at the West Coast Avengers way back when, because those ain't the real Avengers. Why are you reading that book? And I'm so glad they showed the West Coast Avengers.
I loved it, and I've got it regularly. So.
You and me both, but I was so glad they keep referencing the West Coast Avengers. And other than that, I think there's most of the stuff that I kind of had will play into our main topics of the day.
All right. So speaking of topics, nice segue there. 4 topics today. Topic number 1, Salem's Lot.
Nice.
So you can probably already guess the theme this week. So topic number 1, let's talk about Agatha Harkness in 1693, this little flashback sequence that we get at the very beginning of this episode, where we kind of get some little backstory on Agatha, who is essentially a young witch escorted through the forest and tied to a stake, surrounded by a circle of hooded women, because it happens, and accused of betraying her coven, primarily by, of all people, her own mother, Evanora. So, Nick, since I went with Jesse first, let's start with you. What was your reaction to, or at least any thoughts about this little backstory that we got about Agatha? And do you think it was important to events that are going to play out later?
I think it will play out later. Maybe right now we're like, why did we need this? Yeah. Some folks might be asking themselves. And
I would not be one of those people, but, that's me.
No, but I mean, of course, the other folks like, why did we get this? What's the point? Because within the episode, it doesn't really play. It doesn't have a payoff in this. Probably will later down the line. And I love the fact that we have another Wizard of Oz reference. Because
Evanora, yes.
Yes, Agnes's apparent mother, I believe, Evanora, is, of course, the Wicked Witch of the East in The Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
So I thought that was it's so cool. And once again, it refers to the fact that I suppose The Wizard of Oz being one of the most referenced films in the history of cinema, because they really just want to hammer home the whole concept of, we like The Wizard of Oz, we're going to throw in some Wizard of Oz references for you.
The audience will understand that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And also because I guess Marvel has played with the Wizard of Oz references in the past in the MCU. So it could be the recurring theme of, I got that reference kind of thing, the flying monkeys and stuff. So it could be that they were like playing with the Wizard of Oz for the MCU. Other than that, I love witches. I love any sort of kind of witchy, occult kind of things.
Right.
So this kind of had a little bit of hints of Hocus Pocus. It had a little bit of hints of the witches. So I really enjoyed it. And I wonder the whole power thing, how that is going to play later on down the line. And the color purple, it made me wonder about an Infinity Stone, whether that has something to do with the Power Stone, because we know the Power Stone gives off this purple energy. So
or maybe Agatha's a Prince fan. We don't know.
Oh, Agatha's a Prince fan. If she is, she definitely gains brownie points from me.
There you go.
But I really enjoyed this, and I thought the effects were great. Here's
She
the thing:
loves purple.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, though: did she literally age the other witches, or do you think she just kind of grounded them into dust? Because I was trying to figure out that effect. Because
I kind of got the vibe that she just sucked the life force out of them.
That's what I got out of it too.
So because of that, their bodies kind of aged and withered, but essentially it's their life force that she sucked right out of them.
That, which I think is a great nod to Hocus Pocus, which is the whole thing about Hocus Pocus is the witches, of course, live on children's life force. So another Disney movie.
Right. Go figure, right?
Yeah, but I really, really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it will pay off into the finale. We got the whole thing that we'll get to later when we get to what Wanda sees in the Infinity Stone, but it starts playing into the whole lore of witches and what have you, and that witches are a thing in the MCU, and I love that they're setting that up.
Yeah, because I find it interesting that Agatha's mother, Evanora, kind of insists that Agatha can't control her own power.
Oh, yeah.
And Agatha's like, no, I can. I can be good, honest. And her mother's like, nope, no, you can't. And she doesn't really react to that well. So this is why it seems, by all appearances, that they've decided to make this version of Agatha Harkness a villain, as opposed to a good witch, for lack of a better term, in Marvel Comics.
But then again, the MCU has been known to change, characters' allegiances or genders or whatever. So it would not surprise me.
Yeah, it wouldn't be either. So essentially, and we'll talk about this, that maybe what we were looking for Mephisto is essentially, to pardon the pun, been Agatha all along.
Yes.
All right, Jesse, you like the way I did that? All right. So, Jesse, how about you? Any thoughts on Agatha and this very interesting flashback?
Yeah, I like the idea that they kind of did a little bit of a twist. Mm-hmm. You assume that it's townspeople that are going to fight the witch, and it turns out it's the other witches are involved. I do like the idea that, they set the idea, at least in theory, that Agatha has been trying to find ways to gain power and to control her powers for a long time.
Right.
That is why I can be good. She pulls the extra power from the other witches and her mother. And so that's why she would be so tempted by the huge spike of power she saw when Wanda created this whole universe. So I think that this is something she's been searching for a long time, either to gain more power or to be able to control power that's inside her. So I thought it was a very important setup. Well done. I do agree the special effects were beautiful. The purple looked great.
Yes, it does.
They kind of, she pulled, and then her mother.
That color really pops in high def. I'm just saying.
It did. It looked really good. It did. It very nice.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jesse. That I think the power thing is important because it seems like she is drawn to Wanda's power because, and we'll talk about this in our next topic, that she basically wants to know how Wanda did what she did. It's like. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to do that after years of study. How did you pull it off? So she's just trying to find out, okay, there's more going on here. It's almost like she sees Wanda as a mystery and wants to explore that. But it's very interesting. Another thing I thought was interesting was the brooch that she takes from her mother's corpse right off of her dress. Apparently that's been, it's the brooch that we've been seeing throughout the season. So, if you're, I guess, looking for a character that was wearing that brooch, there was our big hint, I guess, throughout the season. All right. Anything else about Agatha, this flashback? Okay. Topic number 2, Misery. So we had Salem's Lot and Misery. Hopefully you figured out the theme by now.
Yes.
I didn't make it hard. But so let's talk here in this topic. I want to talk about since we're setting this up already, Agatha's exploration into Wanda's past. She wants to know, like, what is it that's so special about Wanda that she was able to create this, her own reality, rewrite her own reality. And to do that, she kind of walks Wanda back through into her own past, covering the various traumas that she's experienced along the way and how it's affected her. And also kind of very subtly hinting that, well, hey, Wanda had her powers all along. It wasn't just they weren't just given to her by Hydra and von Strucker. So they've been there all along. They just needed a little push. So as far as I'm concerned, that kind of like hints at, well, hey, mutants exist, right?
Yeah.
So Jesse, we'll start with you on this one first. What are your thoughts about this little tour that we go through Wanda's life?
So this is, I think, interesting because Agatha says something along the lines, the only way forward is by going backwards or something along that time.
Yeah.
So she almost seems like she is wanting to help Wanda work through what's going on. Now, I suspect it's because she thinks by going through that she's going to figure out what happened. But there is just a little bit of a hint that she's also trying to help Wanda. And I think it's maybe mutually. There's two, she has double, like I can kill two birds with one stone.
Double two goals here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was something we I kind of postulated last episode, if you recall, that maybe she was trying to counsel Wanda.
Right.
And, and to provide some kind of therapy for her to get her through these stages of grief. But yeah, she might have two goals going on here.
Yeah, there is a lot, tons of articles being written about Wanda's powers.
Yeah.
That they are not just mutant, they are witchcraft. This shows she is a true witch. She is doing spells. She is not just doing her hex spells. And this whole combination that people are writing this that are similar to you two that have gone through this muddy journey of the character in comics because they've kind of gone different ways of how her powers are. Yes, they're mutant. No, they're spells. There's a little bit of both. So I thought that was a pretty interesting thought. I enjoyed seeing the flashbacks. Now here's where I may be a little. I didn't need to see it, and I'm gonna do. Since you mentioned Lost, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
There were a lot of
previously on Lost
previously wanted things spelled out for them.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, nothing that we saw in the flashbacks were things that I needed spelled out. I had figured out most of that through the show anyway, so that's why I was a little disappointed in this episode because I don't feel like I got any new ground. I got, you know how you thought the reason why that we have the Stark commercial is because of a bomb? They're flashing red light. Oh, we do that? The reason why she is obsessed with sitcoms is because she watched sitcoms when she was a kid. Like a lot of this stuff that we had already discussed, they're showing us, and I went, I guess you needed to do that for some audience members, but I didn't need it for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but, to be fair, and I get where you're coming from, I think to be fair, though, I think that some people, need that spelled out for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Because let's face it, let's face it. You're a pro at this. We've done like literally hundreds of episodes where we dissect TV shows and analyze them and know what things to look for.
Yeah.
And so much so that I think that we've become like, TV show detectives. We can figure it out, the mystery.
Yes, I think that's well said, Charles, and not just because you're complimenting us,
right?
But I do think that, and that's why I'm saying I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, you're at the advanced level. Some people may need that spelled out, though.
And I enjoyed seeing it.
Yeah.
I just wanted a little bit more. I would have liked the episode to go another 15 minutes
Yeah.
to say, okay, now that we set this up, let's go. And I think it goes back to your point. What's our payoff next week
Yeah.
for doing that? But great going back, seeing all the different visions, so to speak, pardon the pun, of her and Vision together. We get the reveal that she did not steal the Vision's body, even though he had lied about that. And we do get a great payoff, even though we knew it, I will admit, to seeing that she pulls into this empty lot where, and, you know,
you're going to jump ahead to the topip, man.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what we're going to be covering after, her breakdown.
Continue.
Yeah. You're getting a little eager here. You're ready to go through the whole show. All right. So any thoughts about Agatha and Wanda? That Agatha is kind of surprised that Wanda doesn't really know the fundamentals of magic. Like, she has these protection runes in her, what she calls her bewitched basement, which I really like that term.
Yeah, that was great.
And that, say that, Wanda's not able to do anything to her because of these. Only the witch that cast them can do something.
So I don't know if you know this story, but it's repeated a lot. You're a baseball scout.
Yeah.
And two guys run from home plate to first base.
Yeah.
And one has horrible form, one has great form, and they reach first base at the time. Which one do you draft? Well, you draft the one with horrible form because then once you give him correct form, he's going to be even faster.
Okay.
Wanda has horrible form, but that's how powerful she is.
Right.
If she was coached, if she was taught, if she was
mentored,
her was mentored,
yeah,
she has such a higher ceiling because she's doing all this just through raw, ability.
Talent, yeah.
Yeah, talent,
so,
yes.
So let me ask you a question then. Do you think Agatha is recruiting Wanda here, or is it just that Agatha respects Wanda's talent and potential and wants to develop it?
So,
like, she respects her game as a witch. And it's like, you're really good, but you could be really great.
Yeah. And I don't want to go too far to the end scene, but when she talks about that, is she worried that without parameters, without training, you're a bomb waiting to go off?
Right.
And so I either need to mentor you and get you to control this, or I need to take you off the board because you're too dangerous to exist.
Yeah. Nick, any thoughts you want to chime in on this?
Well, I think, to Jesse's point where he says, maybe some folks didn't need certain things explained to them. I think the function of all this is, one, yes, to give folks closure on certain things. And also, of course, it does add to the story. Case in point, the lie told by Hayward when it comes to Vision's body, which is huge. And what I love about this journey, if you will, that Agatha and Wanda go on, it reminded me of so many things. It's kind of an amalgamation of almost a Dickensian spirit, if you will, like The Ghost of Christmas Past, taking the character through their journey, or Clarence Oddbody from It's a Wonderful Life, showing the character, what the world around her, if you will.
Apologies if you're listening, Rachel, friend, because I know how much of a fan you are of that movie.
Yeah, she loves that movie.
And so for those of you that had Christmas Carol, Wizard of Oz, and
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life on your bingo card. Congratulations.
Yes. Also, it did, I don't know why, but it also, the way she does it, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Violator from Spawn.
Okay.
As in, because
interesting reference, but okay. I'll allow it. Yeah.
Because, we know, of course, the Violator's reasons, or should say objectives are, of course, nefarious and evil. But initially, he guides Spawn, or shows him the ropes, if you will, taunting him and tormenting him, but giving him an idea of what he's doing and the reason he is there, even though he does it in a very evil way, Plus, I suppose I'm a huge fan of Spawn, so obviously it did make me think a little bit of The Violator.
Okay. All right.
Outside of that, I think also it wants to also reinforce the whole concept of magic, which we already know through Doctor Strange exists and is a force in the MCU. Mm-hmm. And no surprise, it's actually Agatha who dubs Wanda the Scarlet Witch. And when it comes to the theory of what is her end game, I think she either wants to groom her to become this almost messianic figure, this so-called Scarlet Witch, which seems to be almost like a mythical, the ultimate witch, if you will.
Kind of like the Phoenix and Jean Grey a little bit.
Yes. It could almost
this big cosmic force that could maybe is able to affect reality. Yeah,
and then one could also make the comparison to the characters of Volko and the Dark Phoenix in Dark Phoenix when it comes to the relationship these two have. Granted, once again, Volko wants to take Dark Phoenix's powers in the movie and not necessarily, groom her to be a destructive force. I think it could be a bit of both. It's either that I'm going to groom you to become this powerful being, and when we will maybe rule the world together, and I will kind of become your disciple, and you will be this magical savior or antichrist even.
Yeah.
Or if not, if you're against me, I'm going to have to take you out and take that power for myself and become the Scarlet Witch ostensibly by taking your power, because. And I think that's where it's really setting up, is the whole concept that the Scarlet Witch is a title that has been passed down from witch to witch, or certain witches have been able to reach this status,
right? Which
could maybe be what Agatha is aiming for, to become this ultimate Scarlet Witch, if you will. It's kind of like the Super Saiyan in Dragon Ball, reaching that ultimate level.
It's a boss level, essentially, yeah, in video games.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
seeing also what we get in the Mind Stone as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting that's the route that they're going here. Again, it's like this ultimate level that you're achieving here, kind of like sort of a sort of version of Master of the Mystic Arts, if you will.
Yeah, it could be like the female version of the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, it could be. So. Explorations of Wanda's past, there's that moment, again, I keep focusing on it because I think it is important where, that Agatha pulls Wanda out a little bit and asks if she stopped the bomb that, the Stark Industries, bomb that came through into their living room and the first one, I guess, leveled their apartment and killed their parents, and the second one is just kind of sitting there ticking, and so there's that little hint of young Wanda using what Agatha identifies as a probability hex, which, as we know from Marvel Comics, is the Scarlet Witch's mutant power. When we were first introduced to her, that she has she creates hexes which affect probability of things happening, in probability fields. So is it essentially setting up her the fact that, she's a mutant? She had this mutant power, and it's only that Agatha kind of sees this raw power, doesn't really click that it's a mutant power, and sees it as mystical, and sees her as this mystical messiah. So is it maybe an error of judgment, perhaps, on Agatha's part, that because she doesn't recognize that it's a mutant power?
It could be a bit of both, because maybe that is what Agatha knows, and so she bases her theories in what she knows.
Right.
And maybe at the time, obviously in Salem, Massachusetts, and what have you, in the 1600s,
right,
they didn't call it mutants, they called it magic. Yeah. And so...
like they misinterpreted it because they didn't know any better. It
could just be that. It's like, it makes me think of, when farmers way back when saw lightning in the sky, they thought it was gods. And then, other scientists came along saying it's not that kind of magic. It actually is electricity and what have you. So it could have just been the theory of the time is this is magic because we're witches. And so everything is ingrained in magic. Yeah. And so they don't even contemplate the concept of there being mutations.
Well, one of the things that Doctor Who loves to do And obviously, I'm saying this as
Yeah,
biased because,
they
hey,
debunk that a lot.
yeah, since, hey, I do a Doctor Who podcast with Jesse, that they explain that magic is essentially science that isn't explained, or isn't understood, I should say. Like primitives, they're not familiar with the science, so they consider it magic. So maybe that's the case here, that it's this mutant energy that Wanda is able to affect these probability fields. And essentially, what we're told through these flashbacks is that when she was exposed to this Mind Stone, from Loki's scepter, that essentially it supercharged her, gave her it took with this little flame that's inside her, blew on it, and created this big roaring fire of power.
And now I want Magneto to sweep down from the sky and kind of point his finger at Agatha saying, "You ignorant peasant, we're mutants. Magic does not exist."
I think a lot of us would love that. The question is, are we going to get that?
We can only hope.
Maybe in a WandaVision season 2. Just saying. Make it happen, guys. But I know it gets a little bit in the comic book weeds, but I have to think that, because we know that one of the reasons that she's able to even be called the Scarlet Witch is that because of the Fox merger, with Disney, that, Disney acquiring Fox. So now they can legally call Wanda the Scarlet Witch, which is why we're going through this whole thing of, we used to just know you as Wanda Maximoff, but now you're the Scarlet Witch. And now we'll see the ramifications of that.
And what's interesting, right, is earlier in the season we had the question was, did she have a costume? Did she have a fancy nickname? And they're like, no, but she's still an Avenger.
Right.
So kind of like,
they set that up. They say, well, she never had one, and now it's like, well, she's getting one now. So
yep, she is.
All right, so we'll see.
Yeah, I believe it was Hayward, wasn't it? It was like, does she have one of those stupid code names?
Right. And Monica was just like, no, not that we know of. Yeah. So now, it looks like I think this is all this big build up to turn her into the Scarlet Witch that we know and expect, I think.
Absolutely.
And since we didn't address that, there was even a little bit of a hint of that, because we actually get a vision, no pun intended, of the Scarlet Witch. We see the headdress, we see the cape, we see the figure.
Yeah, and the Mind Stone, yeah.
When we were doing that, when the Mind Stone that imbued Wanda with this power, so essentially the Mind Stone triggered the Scarlet Witch within her, presumably.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was almost like a foreshadowing, like a premonition of the being she would eventually become.
Well, I mean, we did find this out recently, and I think it was 2016.
Yeah.
In the comics, in the Scarlet Witch solo comics, we actually found out that Wanda's biological mother was actually one of the first Scarlet Witches ever, Natalia Maximoff, who apparently went by that name. And it was a mantle that had been passed on almost from mother to daughter throughout the centuries. And that's kind of revealed. So it might be a homage to the Scarlet Witch solo series from
James
2016.
Robinson, Starman
Correct,
writer,
yeah.
Who Jesse and I are big fans of, because Starman was this fantastic series.
So it might be a homage to that, to the fact that it is literally a title like the Sorcerer Supreme, which is passed on to women.
It could be
of a magical persuasion,
or just this lineage, perhaps. Maybe just Wanda's family line, perhaps.
They're like, you are. I'm worried because you are, your powers are chaos powers. You are the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else about this topic before we move on? All right. Let's cover the other half of this with topic number 3, Under the Dome. Of course. So this I want to talk about Wanda's breakdown, and essentially we finally get the full, laid out events of okay, how did Wanda transform Westview, New Jersey into this WandaVision sitcom reality. So, Nick, did I go with you last time, or did you want to? I think I'll go with you in this one first. So, what was your take on going through the events of just finally getting those missing pieces of the events of like that gap between Avengers Endgame and the beginning of the episode 1 of WandaVision? Getting those answers. What was your reaction to that?
Well, as I'd mentioned, I know that the world at large apparently cried buckets over this particular part of the episode. I mean, there was no place I didn't find, be it Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. Everybody's like, bring on the cry smileys, because it was like, oh, WandaVision, where kind of thing. Okay, yes, I cried too. But other than that,
I like the fact that you own that after going wah and making fun of it. That's funny.
No, of course, because I'm an old softie.
You're a softie.
And I take digs at myself for being an old softie. That's why I say where, because I was like, yeah, okay. In fact, even my cat has zero respect for me for that reason, but never mind. But
that's pretty bad if your cat's giving you shade for crying during this.
Yeah, Celine was literally almost rolling her eyes at me, going, "Come on,
seriously."
Yeah, and then went back to kind of cleaning herself, but that was it,
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's heartbreaking because initially Wanda did not. All Wanda wanted to do was literally give the man that she loved, or the synthezoid that she loved, a decent burial and an honorable burial.
Right.
Because she doesn't go there with the intention of wanting to steal his corpse. She's like, I want to at least give this man a burial. And obviously that's denied her, and she leaves, and the whole thing where she gets to Westview, because we found out that her and Vision had literally purchased property there.
That was the big one that really hit the waterworks. Was just like, they were going to settle down there, and there's that great note, from Vision, to grow old in. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, and that's the moment where she really snaps, if you notice.
Yeah.
So
because she's like, there goes that moment of falling to her knees and just
Because we kind of wondered, what was that moment where she just finally flipped? The switch was flipped, and that was it.
Yeah, that was. But and see, I think that's really gave you the answer of. She didn't do it because she was selfish, or she didn't do it because she was hypocritical. It was literally an outburst of, sadness and tragedy.
Yeah, raw emotion.
We'd almost gotten a hint of it in Age of Ultron when she finds out Pietro was killed. When she literally, destroys Ultron and just gets on her knees, and you get that huge explosion when she realizes or feels that Quicksilver has been killed. And this is almost like a, should we say, repetition of that.
A callback, yeah.
To that. And so then we get, obviously, everything happening in, the Westview being transformed. It was so powerful. And kudos, as always, to Elizabeth Olsen for really portraying that kind of emotion and that kind of sadness and just that kind of heartbrokenness, because you literally see this is a broken woman, literally.
Give this woman the Emmy. I'm telling you.
All the Emmys.
All the Emmys. God. There is going to be literally hell to pay if they don't do that. I got to say. It was just
absolutely beautiful. The score also was very good at underlining her emotion. So also kudos to the composers as well. But just absolutely beautiful stuff. And I love that we actually got this moment, that this is why, and it shows that she is not a villain, and that it is literally a breakdown, and I absolutely adored it.
All right, Jesse, I got to know now, what's your take?
Yeah, so I'm right there with you guys. I love that scene. I love the idea, she's in just this normal-looking car and just driving in grief, and pulls up and sees that note and just overwhelmed by grief. Great special effects of just the grief and the power pouring out of her, and you see we get shots of the people before, and they're in their normal lives, and then you get this where it turns to black and white and everything changes, and then she's still in color, and she looks, and there is her beloved. And it's almost like do not look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Like I'm letting myself into this fantasy. If I'm dreaming, don't wake me up. I just want to do. So when she talks about, I don't really know how I did this, or when she's talked about this over the past 6 or 7 previous episodes where she seems confused at times, this was truly, just almost a reflex and in this subconscious that she's just, I'm going to take advantage of it. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And he's in his, 50s sweater, and do we just want to stay in today?
Watch TV.
And,
you want to?
Yeah, and watch TV, and she's got her 50s do, and just like, oh my goodness, everything's right. It was just a lovely ending, and to have that kind of, okay, yes, everything we had thought about, everything we had speculated, and a lot of other people had speculated,
Yeah.
What a payoff, what true, and we're setting up for, okay, what's next? What are we going to do next episode? How is this going to be to get things, because I do think Wanda is also fighting she doesn't want to control these people. She doesn't want to take away everyone else's life. She just wants to be happy.
Right.
So just leave me alone. Just let me live my fantasy.
Well, the problem is that, and this is where it doesn't become really happy, as far as the happy ending for her, is that if she had just kept it inside their house and it was just her and Vision, that would have been one thing. But she's affecting all these other lives and controlling them and turning them that we like we took during the Halloween episode when they're like, the poor woman is doing this repetitive motion in her front yard, and she's got tears because she's helpless. She's a prisoner of Wanda. And, it's something that needs to be stopped, but Wanda's not capable of grasping that. And that's the real tragedy here, is that the question is, well, Wanda has obviously, has a serious mental impairment going on right now. She's, for lack of a better word, she's insane. She's had a psychotic break, and she's not able to grasp what she's doing. She's just being purely selfish. And now, you've got Agatha, I should say, coming in and essentially trying to find out, okay, how did you do all this? And probing into things and forcing her to confront the reality that she didn't want to confront. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that pays off. Jesse, I can't hear you. You're talking. And mute again.
Well, I'm being like, I don't even know, as you said, Charles, I don't think she even knows how to undo it.
Right.
Because she didn't consciously do it.
She didn't know how she did it, so she can't undo it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a good point. But maybe the only person that can really get her to undo this is Agatha at this point. What do you guys think?
Or is there a doctor in the house?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh, I see what you did there. Paging Dr. Strange, paging Dr. Stephen Strange. Please come to the front desk. Yeah, exactly. Bring your book of the Darkhold, or the book of the Vishanti, or whatever you've got in your library. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, we kind of end this episode with this cliffhanger, which again kind of makes me wonder if they kind of took the Mephisto stuff from the comics and kind of blended it a little bit with Agatha here, where you have Agatha having control over Tommy and Billy. And, that essentially saying, your children, this envision, this life you made, this is just chaos magic. And this is where she says, well, this is what makes you the Scarlet Witch. So, knowing what we know from the comics, Nick, do you think that maybe in the next episode, in episode 9, we're going to get the very tragic reveal that because Wanda created these kids. They don't really exist because, as we're told, she can't create something from nothing. So how are these kids created? And so maybe Agatha smashes that reality, and that's what essentially wipes the kids out of existence.
Well,
like Mephisto did in the comics.
It could very well be the case. I mean, I think there's the case for and the case against when it comes to this, because one, we had mentioned the fact that it does seem like they keep wanting to set up the Young Avengers, seeing what is coming down the pike when it comes to other characters, you know.
But even Marvel didn't do that until years later.
True. So I mean, or you know, disaster strikes, and you know, you enjoyed these kids, folks. You're never going to see them again.
Yep. Sorry about your life.
That might be.
Well,
that might be the case.
Well, you know, and it might just be one more last traumatic event for Wanda to really tip her way, way over the edge and go full supervillain, perhaps.
Which is why, if it keeps
all dark Wanda.
Which is the fact is, if you know, we are you know, considering the fact they will all bleed into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
We probably, you know, to go into the writer's head, we probably want to get Wanda at her most desperate and her most almost overpowered.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? You have her maybe accept the fact that the man she loves is dead and that her children never existed.
Mm-hmm.
Voila, you have a foe or a character for the Doctor to take care of.
Exactly. And maybe Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, is actually the true big bad of the next Doctor Strange movie.
I would not be surprised seeing some of the, should we say, these posters, as I mentioned, that are coming out, where in the background you have Wanda with these flaming eyes and looking pretty pissed off and not exactly, hi, I'm the Scarlet Witch, let's go do something heroic together. Yeah. No, she don't look like that.
Yeah, this could be like all big misdirection, like, oh, you think it's going to be Nightmare or Baron Mordo coming back. Nope, it's Wanda, the Scarlet Witch. So,
I'd love to get Mephisto, don't get me wrong, but
so would
I don't know.
I don't know if we're going to get it at this point. Yeah, I don't either. I don't think we're going to get it. I think if nothing else, they took the Mephisto aspects and they kind of imbued that into Agatha here.
Also because, I mean, as I mentioned, between the Asian market and between it being Disney, you don't want the PTA on your back saying my kid is watching something with the devil in it.
Yeah. I just want to know who's going to hawk that $3 billion worth of vibranium on eBay.
Very nice, yes.
All right. So, anything else? Topic number 4, the dark half. So we had Salem's Lot, Misery, Under the Dome, and the dark half. So unless you're living under a rock somewhere, you probably recognize that those are all titles of Stephen King novels.
Well, you've lived under the castle rock, just saying.
Oh, I see.
Nice.
Well played, sir.
Well
points.
Done. Well done.
I'm gonna give you points on that one. All right, points to Nick.
I love Stephen King. What can I say?
There you go. So I thought you'd appreciate that one. I figured you'd know it right off the bat. Hey, so let's talk about Hayward. Let's talk about the Cataract Project and the white vision that we get in this mid-credit Sting teaser sequence. So, Jesse, I know you're not familiar with the white vision from the comics, but what did you make of this post-credit scene?
Well, I was happy because they had already given us a mid-credit scene.
Yeah,
I was
in the previous episode. Yeah,
because the first few episodes they didn't, even though you stuck around. So because they had the previous time, I was waiting to see, like, oh, they're going to have to show this. And so I did not catch that it was the white vision, but I did catch that, okay, they have restored Vision to, and I'm going, his programming had been reset, is how I look at it, right? Like,
you went back to the factory. You went back to the factory settings on this one.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's not going to have any emotion. He's not going to have this feelings for Wanda. And now then they're going to go. We're setting up where Wanda is going to have to deal with a adversary that looks like her beloved. So I really thought that was nice. I thought it was, we don't trust in the Marvel universe. We don't trust people of power.
Mm-hmm.
The government and the military are never to be trusted. So once again, I just thought this was a really nice showing us again that, all right, they're going to be after this. So I thought it was a brilliant kind of setup for next episode. A lot of tangles they've got to pull together, and I'm crossing my fingers they're going to do it well.
Okay, that's fair enough. Nick, how about you?
Well, I mean, it really just has you really hanging on the edge of your seat when it comes to this. I mean, we had discussed the fact of, the Cataract Project being the whole thing of, an impaired vision or a clouded vision.
Yep.
And here we see where it all comes to a head, where the vision literally has these almost clouded over eyes and is, the color that he is. So I thought it was kind of clever how that all played into that. And I guess just the deception of Hayward revealed, the fact that all he wanted was Wanda to get angry, as you had actually speculated, so that her power could fuel the vision and this, shall we say, faux vision, if you will, and have him kind of come to life.
I'll call fission. Fission. You like that?
Yes, cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, unless he is somebody else or he is literally just your bad science guy, or should we say suit guy, if you will, like your smoking man from the X-Files.
I hope not. I don't want another generic like government employee that goes rogue. I want make it matter.
No, I agree with you. I mean, we have seen that character too much. Granted, it would make me grin if suddenly you heard a cigarette being lit and going, "Hello, Wanda," and the smoking man kind of smoking away at her, going, "We brought back your husband." Yeah.
And just in case anybody's wondering, Nick is perfectly willing to volunteer to be the next smoking man. He already has the cigarettes, you guys.
Yes, he does.
And I've actually been working on that very sort of soft-spoken but terrible voice, like, "Hello, Fox," kind of thing. I love. But you have to say it
you have to say it a little more drier and sinister. Hello, Fox. Yeah.
I have to work on that, but I do agree with you. I would like a bigger payoff than. Yes, this is once again a bad guy in a suit who just wants to do bad things, and
he just wants his own vision. And apparently, he rebuilt the parts that were essentially, erased all the original programming or whatever, put him back together, and now they're just ready to unleash this factory settings version of the Vision on the world for whatever purpose.
I mean, as much as I'd love, the revelation of him kind of ripping off like an apparent mask and it being Ultron.
Yeah.
I know that I don't
think we're going to get Ultron. I don't think we're going to get Ultron.
Exactly. I know. As much as I'd love that, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do hope there's more to him. Either we get that tie of the other Hayward from Hydra that we'd seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so we find out he's actually an inside man for Hydra, or I really don't know, or it could just be, another generic suit. Who's just a bad guy. Outside of that, I'm just really looking forward to seeing now what this is all, how this is all going to come to a head. And also, of course, where is Monica and where is Darcy and where is Agent Woo?
Where are Agents of S.W.O.R.D., our true Agents of S.W.O.R.D.? We want to know what they're up to.
Yeah,
so
this none of that was addressed.
This next episode, it better be a really long episode because there's a lot to cover here. Lots of play.
I have a feeling. So I have a feeling it's going to be an hour with end credits. I think it's probably not going to amount to much, but
I guess it's all going to depend on how they end it. Are we going to get the everything crammed into an hour, or are we going to get it just a little bit of it and the rest, like you said, in a Doctor Strange movie or potentially is season 2, because I was trying to figure out they could easily do a season 2 if they wanted to, because they could explore Wonder Man and the Grim Reaper in season 2.
Oh yes, Well, I mean, Kevin Feige has been very, should we say, mysterious when it comes to that. He's like, I won't confirm and I won't deny.
Yeah.
He's playing that card.
He's playing, yeah, and that's fine. But maybe he doesn't even know yet. Maybe he's willing to do a season 2, but maybe for whatever reason, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany haven't signed on yet for it.
It may also be a question of, getting the folks into the room and looking at contracts, because for all we know, maybe their contracts expire after this season and they might have to go back into, should we say, negotiation for a second season.
Yeah. I'm sure right now his focus is just like, okay, I got to get the WandaVision audience to go to the Doctor Strange movie. I'm sure that's all he's thinking at the moment. That's priority 1 with him.
No, of course. But yeah, he's been very tight-lipped when it comes to future projects, as I suppose is to be expected.
And I got to think that the fact that this has been so successful has got to at least put the idea in their head, like, well, maybe we could do a season 2, even if they weren't planning it.
Yeah, because maybe they were just playing to see how this would go.
Yeah, or they didn't anticipate or they didn't anticipate this kind of a reaction to it.
Could very well be. It could very well be. But yeah, I think, as you said, the ultimate motive is to get folks to really be hyped for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness next year.
Yeah. I know it certainly helped us on the Fandom Zone because, hey, we've just had our biggest download month ever. We got
wow.
Yeah, so we are destroying this month. So cheers to us, guys.
And thank you to all the listeners who believe in us.
Yes, exactly. Thank you to all listeners, and hopefully we got some new ones here as we've been covering WandaVision as a result. Maybe they're going back through our old episodes, but hopefully you are, because they're there and right there waiting for you. All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on? Okay.
Charles, did you have anything you wanted to
No,
add?
No, not really. I mean, it is pretty much what it is. It's like, well, hey, we've got a White Vision. He's under Hayward's control. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But we'll just, there's so much in play here. And I'm very curious to see what we get, what we don't get, and or what we might get later. So,
yeah.
All right. That's all I have. All right. Anybody got any favorite quotes they want to share?
Mm-hmm. I had a couple.
Okay, go for it.
Well, there's the one that I seem to love the very depressing and distraught ones. Okay, but
what does that say? Are we going to have Agatha go through your past now and explore what your deal is?
It all happened when the Montreal Canadiens started losing.
Well, Nick, I just want to say, there's always time to be a Blue Jackets fan. Jump on that bandwagon, my friend.
Well, and thank you for showing your concern.
Yes,
when
I was like I told you before we started. I was concerned you were on suicide watch after your head coach was removed abruptly.
Yes, nobody was expecting it, but yeah. Going to our quotes here. Wanda, of course, where she says, by the end of the episode, you realize it was all a bad dream. None of it was real, which is kind of heavy there.
A little dark.
What is going to remain after the dust settles? And then the other one, which is a little bit, I guess, the kind of was a tough one, was Wanda and Agatha. Wanda saying, "Where are my children?" And Agatha's like, "Where are my children?" Oof, that accent really comes and goes, doesn't it?
Yeah. I like that they addressed that because that was something we had speculated on earlier.
Yeah.
Jesse, get a quote?
I don't have the quote, but I love the idea that they're when she says it's not that kind of show. When the Malcolm in the Middle, falls down and
right.
He's like, oh, he's going to be hurt. No, it's not that kind of show, which was, I thought, really kind of meta that, that we do understand that there are shows that are going to be comedy and shows that are tragic. So I like that. No, I don't have any others. Please keep them coming.
All right. Agatha talking, early on to her coven and to her mother, where she says, "I did not break your rules. They simply bent to my power." That's a badass statement right there.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Agatha talking to Wanda, saying, necromancy was a non-starter since your real brother's body is on another continent, not to mention full of holes. Brutal.
Bring on the black humor.
Brutal, man. Let's see. Tyler Hayward saying, talking to Wanda, saying, not everyone has that kind of power that could bring their soulmate back online. Sorry, back to life. Any wonder why she went over the edge?
Mm-hmm.
And I went on something a little hopeful here after those comments, where Wanda says, the only thing that would bring me comfort is seeing him again. Sorry, I'm so tired. It's like this wave washing over me again and again. It knocks me down, and when I try to stand up, it just comes for me again. And it's just going to drown me. And the Vision says to her, no, it won't. And Wanda replies, yeah, how do you know? The Vision says, well, because it can't all be sorrow, can it? I've always been alone, so I don't feel the lack. It's all I've ever known. I've never experienced loss because I've never had a loved one to lose. But what is grief, if not love persevering?
Very nice.
Paul Bettany killed it at that moment. Killed it.
Oh, yes, he did.
All right. Ratings. What's everybody's ratings? Jesse, we'll start with you.
So, like I said, I was a little disappointed compared to what we've been at.
Yeah.
But still a great episode. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 piano lesson flyers.
Excellent. Nick, how about you?
I'm going to give this 8.5 out of 10 houses to grow old in.
Oh, you stole mine.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Oh, you're killing me here. You're killing me. All right. Let's see. Now I got to come up with a scramble. I thought I was going to be really good with that one. Nobody would get it, but sure enough, I should have knew Nick would go right for that one. You old softy, you. All right. So as for me, like I said, no surprise here. I'm going to go with 8.5, and I'll go with cases of classic sitcom DVDs.
Nice.
All right. So, yeah, pretty much the same as last week for me, but this is, again, another – I think it was important that we had it. I think for the overall narrative, it needed to be done. But it's obviously next episode has to be huge, I think. So we'll see if it sticks the landing. We'll see. Phantom Zone news, just really quickly, I don't have much, just to let everybody know that if you're a Legends of Tomorrow fan, that show returns for Season 6 on Sunday, May 2nd on the CW. And if you're a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, they released that Loki is going to be premiering on Friday, June 11th. So the timeline goes WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki.
Yummy.
So Marvel or Disney's got now that we're finally on track with these Marvel Cinematic Universe shows, they're banging them out one right after the other. So, which means that we're going to be very busy here on the Phantom Zone. Just saying.
Well, we did predict this actually last year, didn't we, Charles? It's like
yes.
All the backlog from 2020 and COVID, boom, you're getting it all this year.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, yes, we're going to be covering the Falcon and the Winter Soldier after WandaVision wraps up. Although we're going to take a little 1 week in between those shows to talk about Superman and Lois. And I'm really looking forward to that because that pilot was amazing.
It was incredible. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Phantom Zone fan mail. Got 3 here, so I know we're running long. We'll try and read these really quickly. Nick, are you able to help out?
Yes, indeedy.
All right. Which ones do you want to take? You want to take the second one, the first one, and the third? Which ones do you want to take?
If you want to kick it off, Charles, I can then take Dave's if you want to start with Holly's. And
all right,
then you can see...
All right. I'll start with Holly's then. Hey, Charles, Jesse, and Nick. So Holly Mack writing in once again. Hey, Holly.
Hey.
Man, what an episode. Note to self, do not tick off Agnes. That opening scene makes me wonder who helped Agnes with her powers back in the day or unless she's just that powerful. Well, now she's Agatha, right?
Yep.
The flashbacks that Wanda had to Sokovia and the bombing had just the right amount of feels, and we also get our clues as to the basis for each of the decades based on the DVDs that the Maximoffs would watch to practice their English. That's a great observation.
Well said.
Yep. The scene with Wanda wanting to see the Vision's body and finding out that he was being broken down so as not to have someone else use his powers was heart-wrenching. Of course, then Hayward turns around and uses his body for his powers. Go figure. Just adding to that. I don't blame Wanda in the least for going mildly ballistic. No, that's the really tragic part of this. You can understand why she's doing this, why she's having the breakdown, right? It's just tragic that it's happening. Is it just me, or are the rest of you getting the feeling about trusting Hayward about as far as you can throw him? Yeah, which is not very far, I might add. Maybe all of an inch, right? Wow, that end credit sequence. This is sure going to be an interesting wrap-up, that's for sure. And then she adds, I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly. Love you. I love getting your emails. They're just so much fun. So great.
They're such a joy.
All right. You go on, Nick. Why don't you read Dave's?
Alrighty, David K. Proctor writes in, Charles, Jesse, and Nick. Great episode this week. Lots of blankets, or I suppose blanks here, where say being filled in. I love a show like this one where you can enjoy every minute, but still aren't sure where it's heading. Clearly, Wanda is super powerful, and Agnes is jealous. Agnes is super powerful if she has been alive since Salem, but is also anxious about what the extent of Wanda's powers. True enough. She clearly plans on getting these powers for herself. So this is Dave's theory.
Yeah.
The concept of Wanda being the Scarlet Witch gives Agnes pause. Wanda seems to be becoming aware of events for the first time, so it'll be interesting when we learn what she is capable of once she knows fully herself. Indeedy. Also, Vision is still en route from where he left Darcy. Where is Darcy? She's probably stuck in traffic. I think we're heading...
She's still at that intersection.
Yeah, she's like, okay.
It's like, come on already. You're killing me.
Enough with the family of ducks already. Yeah. I think we're heading for a showdown with Vision and this counterfeit Vision and Wanda versus Agnes. But of course, the kids are still in play. Maybe. And Darcy and Captain Photon Rambeau and Agent Wu. This is getting good! ! As always, I'm looking forward to your expert analysis. Thank you, David K. Proctor.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
So you're saying we're experts. Got you fooled. All right. Maybe we did a little probability hex of our own on that one. All right. Could be. All right. So last but certainly not least, we have Chris from Colorado writing in once again. So hi, Chris. Hey, Chris. Phantom Zone gang. Well,
yeah.
It's always still, like I said, I love it because it's cool that we get email from the Batman. So.
Oh, yes, it's true. He signs himself as the Batman, doesn't he?
The Batman, yeah. That's on his header. So Chris says, just when you think this show can't get any better, it keeps blowing me away with its beautiful writing and superb execution. Agree. There was some great writing in this episode. Obviously, you got to get those waterworks somehow from watching poor Wanda. I have a few theories for the finale next week. First, I want to shout out DJ Nick for the spot-on theory with the commercials tying into Wanda's past.
Thank you, Chris. I try.
Yep, and you succeed, sir. Piggybacking off that, I think the Nexus commercial is foreshadowing what Wanda will become, which is a Nexus being that is able to travel between multiverses. Yep. Yeah, kind of like I said, also like the Phoenix in a lot of ways. Yep. I think we saw a glimpse of that future when she saw herself as the Scarlet Witch looking into the Mind Stone, which, by the way, made me gasp out loud in joy. And he throws up a little rocker devil hand sign there, so that's kind of cool.
I love those devil horns, yes.
The devil horns, yeah. And no, that's not like a Texas Longhorn thing. Anybody wondering? So going forward, if Wanda doesn't get the physical Scarlet Witch headdress, I think that we'll give her a CGI crown like they did with Agatha's mom. In the final battle against Agatha next week, I think Dottie will turn out to be a witch, help Wanda defeat Agatha. Interesting theory. We still got to wonder about the mailman and all those characters, right?
Yep.
Don't forget those characters. I think it's important. Our Vision will defeat White Vision and put his consciousness into the new vibranium body. So Chris is very optimistic about the Vision's return. Final theory, we will be getting a post-credit scene showing Nightmare was the one giving Agatha all her power all along, and Doctor Strange showing up asking Wanda for help to defeat Nightmare.
That would be cool.
I know Chris is very big on Nightmare, so judging by this past couple of emails, so maybe we'll find out. Favorite quote from the episode, Vision saying to Wanda, I've never experienced loss, but I've never had a loved one to lose. But what is grief if not love? Persevering.
Yeah, as you had pointed out as well, Charles.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes too, obviously. He says, I give this one 10 out of 10 Dick Van Dyke box sets.
Wow, you really enjoyed this one.
Yes, yep. Sorry for the long email. Your podcast makes my day every week. So happy to be on this crazy roller coaster of a ride that is WandaVision with you gentlemen. Hey, take that back. You guys rock. Much love. Cheers, Chris from Colorado. So thank you, Chris.
Very nice.
Thank you for the compliments. And yeah, we try our best. So hope you're enjoying our ride with us.
He rocks just as much.
You rock just as much, if not more, I might add. Because you're listening to us and you're taking the time to write in. So that gets you points in my book. All right. So everybody, thank you guys for writing in. We love to get in the feedback. And if you want to be like Holly, Dave, and Chris, please write in fandomzonecast@gmail.com. That's fandomzonecast@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter @fandomzonecast on Twitter. Facebook, of course, the Fandom Zone Podcast, or Instagram @FandomZone Podcast. And Jesse, where can they reach you out there in the internets?
You can find me on Twitter @JesseJacksonDFW. And from there, you can find all the other podcasts I do. Nick?
Sorry, I was swallowing my Coke there. Apologies. When it comes to me...
Thought he was going to run a little longer, didn't you?
Yes, I was like, okay, I can take a swig. Whoa, okay.
Nope.
Yes.
Denied.
Well, when it comes to me, if country music is your thing, I do host a Whiskey and Cigarettes show where we play today's country, traditional country, and everything else in between. For more info about that and where to tune in, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, if superhero movies are your speed, I do host Happiness and Darkness, a superhero movie podcast where we discuss all the superhero movies from all the big publishing houses, be it Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, or more. If you'd like to join me on there and discuss a favorite superhero movie of your choice, feel free to send me an email at happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagram. And last but certainly not least, Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where myself, the wonderful Rachel Friend, and the amazing Zan Sprouse are going through all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture, from 1927's Wings to the present day. To join in on the conversation and discuss your favorite superhero, your favorite Best Picture movie, feel free to send me an email, goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. We're on Facebook and the Twitter machine. And what about you, Charles?
What about you, Nick? Hey, thanks. I'm glad I'm not the only one that already trips up on his own big podcast spiel. I feel good. I feel good about that. So as for me, of course, @CharlesSkaggs on Twitter, @CharlesSkaggs on Facebook and Instagram, and my blog of geeky things. Come on, you.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone. So WandaVision, Falcon the Winter Soldier, all the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows, all kinds of comic book sci-fi shows, and movies and comics and books and TV shows and all that jazz. And news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media Group, including, hey, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast that I do with Jesse, where we talk Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish, audios, and more. And we'll be having a certain Zan Sprouse joining us this coming week as we discuss Ghostlight, one of the oddest episodes that Doctor Who has ever produced. And who better than Team Ghostwood to discuss this on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast.
Beautiful.
I can't think of anybody better, can you? Yeah. And then, of course, Zan and I do Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch. We just finished talking The Straight Story, the G-rated David Lynch film released by Disney of all studios. Yes, David Lynch did a G-rated film for Disney and really liked it. It was the first time that we had both seen it, and I highly recommend everybody checking that out. It's a very, very, very underrated film. And I think if you enjoy biographies or road movies, this is both. So you would get a kick out of this. And it's very much a David Lynch film, too. So I hope everybody checks that out. And then next time on Ghost Road, we're going to be discussing the very first episode of On the Air, the very short-lived ABC kind of sitcom from Mark Frost and David Lynch that only got 3 episodes aired, but David Lynch directed the first one, so of course we're going to talk about it. So I hope everybody checks that out. And then last but certainly not least, Drunk Cinema, where Zan and I, we talk all kinds of movies that we love. We have adult beverages, adult conversation, and just have a ball watching these movies, and hope you watch along with us as we go through these and share our thoughts. We just finished doing Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. So if you're a Star Trek fan, you definitely want to check that out because it was just so much fun, and Zan got so hammered once again. So
she did.
Obviously makes for a very great podcast.
Yeah.
And then coming up next time will be our 7th episode. So essentially episode 007. So we got to talk a James Bond film, right? So we're going to be discussing Goldfinger, the 1964 Sean Connery classic. So you got to check that out because it's Goldfinger, it's Sean Connery as James Bond, and it's Zan and me. So enough said, right? So everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting us. Like I said, you guys have been great. We've had our best download month ever for the Phantom Zone podcast. You guys rock totally. And keep it up. Keep telling your friends about us. And then come on back next time for episode 208 as we finally discuss the season, hopefully just season, not series finale of WandaVision. Guys, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I just want to, of course, echo your words, Charles. Thank you, everybody, for just supporting us and checking this show out. It means the world, I'm sure, to all 3 of us. And, and as I mentioned, it is the Fandom Zone, so it's great that it is a place for fans to come together and, just to, maybe give their own theories as folks have done in writing. So I just could not be more thankful to everybody out there. And, of course, to you, Charles, and to you, Jesse, for being a part of this wonderful journey. So just thank you, everybody out there. It means a lot.
Yes, I echo. Thank you, audience, for listening and downloading and sharing it. It makes a big difference. Podcasts grow by word of mouth, and so anytime you can share with a friend, we appreciate it that you think enough of us to share. So thank you, guys. And as always, Charles, Nick, it's always joy talking to you guys.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. So, guys, thanks again. Everybody else out there, thanks again. And going to come on back, episode 208, as we discuss WandaVision episode 9, right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.